Hi everyone, I'm Alicia. I am the Senior Event Content Manager for Ecommerce Expo this year. We are joined here with Chloe, who is one of our speakers for the show this year. This is obviously part of a wider series where I interview some of our wonderful speakers that will be joining us on the 23rd and 24th of September at the Excel in London. Chloe, would you like to introduce yourself?
Of course, great to be here. Thanks for the invite, Alyssa. My name is Chloe Thomas. I am the host of the E-commerce Masterplan podcast. Been in this industry for far too many years, but still loving it, and really excited to be part of E-commerce Expo this year.
Amazing. Thanks, Chloe. So at the show, Chloe, you have an amazing session that's all around ways to monetize returns and secondhand, which I know is something you're personally really quite passionate about. Um, so just getting straight into it, where is the hidden money in returns that most e-commerce teams are missing, do you think?
I mean, we all know that returns is expensive, right? It's an item on the P&L that every brand would very happily eradicate if they could. So I think we had to start off by saying we know it's expensive, but there are ways in which you can lower those costs, and you can start finding ways to either reduce the cost of returns or improve the profitability of what happens post returns. For me, the first one of that is, should you even bring the return back, which is such a bizarre thing to say in e-commerce. We're like, bring me my product, it's my product, I want my product back to me. But actually, a lot of furniture brands are famous for just going, actually no, we don't want it back because it's more hassle than it's worth. We'll send you a replacement, donate it, give it to someone, sell it on Facebook Marketplace, what you want to do. But I think that is something it's worth every brand considering, is it worth the cost of bringing this back in? If we'd already discounted it by 70% in the end of season sale, and it'd been lurking in the warehouse unsold for 2 years, do we actually want them to send it back to us and make us our problem again? So there's that cost reduction element of, do we want it back? The second one is, what do we do when the return gets back to us? And first and foremost for me, that is getting it back on the shelf to sell it as higher price point as possible. If you've got a best-selling item that's coming back in returns and you're not getting it back on the shelf straight away, then you're missing out the possibility of selling that at full price. And then as that decreases, and as some returns come back in an unsaleable fashion, we start looking at the second-hand element, or dealing with the returns you can't sell as first-hand again. And there's obviously money there.
I know you mentioned a little bit about furniture brands and stuff like that, but you have obviously quite premium brands and then you have some more kind of value brands. So how should they be approaching returns differently, do you think?
I mean, I think for me, it's less about premium and value and more about brand and margin. I think those are the differentiators. It's not like all luxury should do this, all value should do this. I think you have to look at within your business how does our brand fit with the world of secondhand? Should we have secondhand on our website, or should we have secondhand hidden in an eBay shop with a different name? Both perfectly valid strategies. It's a branding based decision. And then it's how much margin you've got on the product, and how much therefore you can expect to make out of that second-hand element. So I think the approach is not necessarily that different, but it is working out where you're going to sell it again, whether you're going to allow peer-to-peer to happen, or whether you want to protect the brand by bringing it in and selling it again. And then, of course, if you're at the lower margin, lower value end of it, we get into the is there any money in selling it again, or do you need to find responsible ways to dispose of it? So it's tricky, but it's, as I'm possibly going to say many times in the presentation, it depends on your brand strategy and your brand objectives and your customers, your product quality and everything. There's lots of things to factor in. There is definitely no returns and secondhand model that's one size fits all in luxury or in value or in fashion or in electronics or wherever. It's a very much a learn from what others are doing and then find the right path for you.
Which I think actually answers my next question, Chloe, which is all around, do you think fashion, electronics, homeware, beauty are all playing by completely different rules, or are they quite aligned, which sounds like they're quite different?
I think in many ways, this has to be in some ways quite aligned, because we're deciding whether a product should come back in or not, and then what we do with that product. So there's a lot of things which, technically speaking, are very similar between all of them. Where I think it becomes very different is in the messaging to the customer, which for me includes whether you're doing peer-to-peer, or whether you're doing a buyback and resell, or whether you're leaving it with the customer. All of that kind of comes into the customer messaging. But then also the legislation that's coming down on people and forcing them to adopt certain methods and certain methodologies with this. Obviously, electronics is a lot more down the line of legislation in terms of what happens to their goods post-sale than other sectors of the industry are, but fashion is becoming more and more controlled in that way. So I think there's a difference in terms of what you're being forced to do, and then amongst what you're choosing to do. Everyone's picking from the same smorgasbord of options, but what they choose is going to differ.
Just looking at people kind of getting started with this, so should brands kind of build their own resale and return models, or should they kind of be partnering with a specialist? What's your advice around that?
I mean, I think on the tech side, you'd be crazy to try and build your own, vibe code your own secondhand returns reselling marketplace. I don't know why you would do that when there are tried and tested software out there for all the different models, the peer-to-peer on site, the bring it back in and sell it on eBay. There's tried and tested systems for all of these. So why you'd try and reinvent that wheel, I don't know, because it's more complicated than it looks like. It's like an onion. You peel off one layer and you suddenly realize a whole other level of complexity. So I think, yes, definitely, don't build that yourself. When it comes to processing the returns and the secondhand items, I think that could be something you do yourselves. I remember many years ago, I went round one of the big baby product companies' warehouses up in the north of England, and they had a whole section dealing with returned items that they were processing. This was at least 10 years ago. They had like Hoover setups, washing setups for cleaning the products to either resell them in their eBay store, I think it was at the time, or to get them back on, re-tagged and back for sale brand new. And they were even repairing prams and buggies and things. So if you've got that specialized product, it may make sense, and you've got that volume of sales, it may make sense to build that department in your own warehouse. But a lot of fashion brands, especially the smaller ones, are now outsourcing that side, and there are now companies who specialize in taking in secondhand and return garments and getting them ready for sale and doing the grading for you. So I think that's a company by company decision based on scale and complexity and skill set.
Yeah. And I think another big area of this conversation is the greenwashing aspect of things as well. So where do you risk greenwashing when you're talking about kind of like resale and circular returns and all this good stuff?
I mean, I think the risk is when you lie. I mean, I think people get quite hung up on greenwashing, but it's basically when you lie about what you're doing, which I'm a marketer, right? I'm a marketer by trade. We may talk things up a little bit. You can't afford to do that when it comes to sustainability claims. You need to have done the maths, the tracking, the recording, the maths. If you're saying, 20% of your sales have been from your second-hand department, and you've worked out what that therefore means for the wider sustainability of your brand, and you've got the numbers, by all means share it if you can back it up. Don't go, I reckon, last week it was 20%. Let's just say it's 20%, and we've looked at our worst product and what that means if we manage to keep it in circulation, and we'll multiply that by the 20% and come up with a random number. Don't do it that way. You've got to be accurate and you've got to not lie. But other than that, you should be fine.
And what's the most common mistake brands make when launching kind of like resale and circular returns, would you say? Would you say that the greenwashing is part of that, or would you say it's something completely different?
I think the biggest one is picking the wrong strategy. So for me, you've got some fundamentally different models or strategies within this. You've got the peer-to-peer, where you build somewhere on your website to enable your customers to sell their used jumpers to each other via the platform, where they essentially, it works just like Vinted, but it's on your site rather than it being on Vinted site. Then you've got the we'll buy it back and process it and resell it as a second-hand good. So it becomes kind of a two-stage process. One, you buy it back in from the customer for vouchers or credit or whatever it might be, and then you grade it, give, recycle some, charity some, and then you put some of it together in kind of a curated shop on your site, where you are then selling it back to the customer and they can put that in their basket along with new items. And then you've got we buy it back in and we sell it via a third party site. We might have a special shop on eBay or some other marketplace. And those for me are the three different models. And I think you've got to be really careful with which one of those you choose to go with, because once you start, your customers get used to one model and then the ball starts rolling and you can't change tack very easily. But I think understanding which one of those models works right for your brand is really important. And I think that's the biggest mistake you make, is going, oh yeah, peer-to-peer sounds great, we haven't got any work to do, bang, we put it up there, and then you end up with fraud happening and you end up with parcels going missing, which hurts your brand without completely outside of your control, because you're letting it happen on your website. But then it might work brilliantly for you depending on who your customer base is. So you need to make the right decision around that and then build up from it. And then the other thing which you can easily get wrong is not really communicating it well enough to your customer base and helping them embrace it with your platform rather than another platform is the two things I think it's easiest to get wrong.
Right, yeah. So my next question, just on top of that, I was also going to say, so how would you kind of decipher which one of those options to go with? Would you say it is talk to your customer, ask your customer how they behave, look at that kind of data, would you say?
Yeah, I think customer behavior is part of it. I think part of it is also about what ops you've got the potential to do. Can you bring in and grade the product, or have you got someone you can outsource that to? You've also got, how does it fit with our brand? You're going back to talking about luxury. I think for most luxury brands, it would make far more sense for it to be a buy back, curate, release on our own website strategy. However, I can see, for some more zany, more characterful luxury brands, it could be, actually, we don't mind going peer to peer. We're happy to do that because we think it fits with our brand values. So I think there's a lot of things that factor into that decision. And I may be covering that in a lot more detail in September.
I like that. You're keeping people guessing. Yeah, keeping people on the edge of their seats. I like it. So what technology do teams actually need to kind of make this work for them?
For me, there's three parts to the technology side of it. One is that front end marketplace on your website where they're selling, or not on your website. You might be outsourcing that to another marketplace, but that bit where people can actually buy the product at the end of it once it's back and it's back on sale. Secondly, we've got the inbound processing of product. So how are you going to track this? Because your outbound business is about multiple units of one SKU. This inbound business is not multiple units of one SKU. It's individual items tied to individual customers which are then going to get graded in different ways. There's a lot of extra data that needs to be added into the product as it comes back in again. And then you've got the CRM piece where you are recording what each customer who sent stuff in is being rewarded by. They might be getting loyalty points. They might be getting money off vouchers. You might be running a one-off campaign once a year where they get a certain number of points and then they get a free t-shirt or something. Whatever it is, you need to be able to track that. For me, that's the three pieces. One, what the front end is powered by. Two, the physical bringing back in of the product. And then thirdly, how you're keeping track of the rewards for the customers.
I guess the final question to kind of wrap this whole section up is, how do you know if a secondhand initiative is working or not?
I mean, volume of parcels coming in would be, I mean, there's obviously lots of metrics. Partly it's are the customers actually sending you stuff back in? You know,
Mhm.
if they're not sending it back in, then they're not interested in doing it. It's not helping. Then you've got the basic profit and loss of it all. Is that sitting where you wanted it to? Is it positive? Is it negative? How are you seeing the sales go through there? How are you seeing, the cost of it all running? And then thirdly, and this is one that may take people by surprise, is customer retention. So studies out of the US, I think it's Boston University, but I will have corrected that by the time it gets to September and have the actual details in the presentation. But they found that it has a measurable positive impact on customer retention and lifetime value, because customers who are sending you back in secondhand goods and buying secondhand goods for you will become better customers over time. It's been proven by the stats. So that's another way to mention it, measure it, is see what impact it has on your customer lifetime value, both of the customers who sell product back to you, but also the customers who buy the secondhand product and how that mixes in with their full price product purchases.
Yeah. And do you think it's a specific kind of customer that will actually do that? Because I feel like that kind of ties into this whole kind of long-term emotional brand building aspect of thing that's all quite psychological, but that feels to me like a specific type of customer as well. I know we're leaning more into the marketing here, but
I
you
mean,
know what I mean?
it feels that way to me too, that maybe brands will be able to recruit a lower level customer that they haven't before, potentially. So you can see luxury brands, people being, especially, those who love the vintage items and so forth, will become, I can now afford that insert luxury brand name item, and they go for the second hand. And then maybe because they're now wearing it, they're going to save up more to get the full price item. But it wouldn't surprise me if it actually, when people are running the numbers, and I haven't seen anyone run the numbers on this yet, if it's actually almost across the board. Because you think of the time poor female executive, she doesn't have the time to faff around with a vintage style or an eBay style solution to sell her secondhand clothes, but she cares about the environment. She's as likely to care about the environment as any of the rest of us. So for her to be able to put a box together, send it into her favorite store and get, I don't know, 50, 100, 150 quid's worth of vouchers to spend on her next outfit, she's likely to do that, even though she's not the person who will be hanging out on Vinted every Sunday evening looking for
Yeah,
the latest deals that have been listed over the weekend.
like
So I
me.
think, yeah, and me. So I think we might be surprised by what those customer demographics look like. But like I said, I haven't seen any stats on that yet. If I find them before September, I will be sharing them at Ecommerce Expo.
Oh, amazing. Well, that kind of wraps up really nicely this first part where we're talking a little bit about your e-commerce expo session. And if people are interested in that, that's currently scheduled for 1:15 to 1:40 on the 24th of September. So that's day 2 of Ecommerce Expo. But one other really cool thing you're getting involved with, Chloe, as well, is our IMRG Growth Summit, where you're going to be moderating a panel on where our retailers actually seeing AI deliver, which is quite a different topic to what we've just spoken about. So I'm going to ask you a few questions around that, if that's all right.
Please do.
Um, if you could cut through the kind of AI noise that's happening at the moment, where do you think retailers are most likely to be seeing real value today?
So this is something I mull over a lot, because we have a habit in our industry of creating a lot of noise about things that don't deserve having a lot of noise created about them. And I've always found that the noise we all create, and I am as guilty of creating this noise as anybody else, is often dislocated from what's actually working from brands and retailers. And I feel like we're a little bit still there. In the general AI world, what we hear a lot about is like vibe coding and creating cool graphics with Nano Banana, and it's doing all my writing for me, and I can now talk rather than type, and it's amazing. But I don't think those are the things which are making the big value for e-commerce stores. Yes, there's bits of efficiency that can come from those, but I think that can be quite distracting. I think in e-commerce where we're starting to see the biggest impacts and where we're going to see the biggest impacts in the next few years are where we have big data sets that need crunching. So like inventory management, helping you work out what you need to rebuy, when you need to rebuy it, and what you need to discount and when you need to discount it. You know, anyone you talk to who's a merchandiser will talk about, you know, trying to understand the trends and how world events and weather are affecting sales profiles. That can now just be chucked in and you can be advised what to do, and it can speed up an awful lot of time. Pulling together reporting, that kind of thing. Automation and, dare I call it, personalisation. We all know that if we can better track how our customers behave and what our customers think about, then we can send them better marketing messages at better moments via the right channels in order to get them to do the right things. Okay, so I'm talking about email, SMS, I'm talking about alerts on the website, what product would they see when they get to the homepage, all that good stuff. That is massive loads of data that we've got so far with machine learning, but clearly AI has a big part to play in making that even more positive an experience for the customer, which may well end up meaning sending less messages than sending more. And then I think the other part, which kind of feeds into that, is, or feeds out of that even, is product data and the race to feed AI the information to get seen in AI search, which is a big product data piece where I know there's some really cool stories about using AI to identify the problems with your product data and help you fill that. You know, my mind still explodes at the thought of they looks at the product image and then suggest all the metadata fields that you've failed to fill in about your products. That is just a dream, clearly. So there's lots of stuff, but for me it's really about big chunks of data is where the big value is coming from.
Yeah. And where do you think AI can genuinely improve the kind of customer journey side of things as well?
I mean, obviously all that personalization activity is going to create a better impact for customers because they're going to see more interesting information at more interesting times. So I think there's a lot of potential around segmentation, around getting the right information into emails for the individual customers, and that segment of one that marketers like me have been told about, if not talked about, for the last 20 years. But I think it's also going to be around things like better content around the products to help customers make a more informed buying decision. It's going to be around chatbots on websites answering the questions you don't know. How long is this skirt? Here's a picture of my face. Does this hair color suit me? Whatever it might be. Those sort of things to help people make the better buying decision on the website, but then also going right the way back to that to inventory levels. If we're doing a better job of keeping the right things in stock at the right time, because AI is helping us churn all that data and get the insights from it, then we're actually going to be able to buy the products we want at the right time. So I think it has the potential for us to give the customer a better experience at every single point of the buying journey, because we can speed things up better, we can anticipate their needs more, whether it's what's in stock when the parcel's arriving, what message they need to see at what time. So I think it has huge potential to improve the customer journey.
Yeah, and what should retailers never automate without thinking very carefully about, do you think?
I mean, I think almost anything can be automated.
Mm-hmm.
But the question is where you have the oversight. You know, I think giving the whole process over to AI with the way we're seeing AI at the moment can obviously, maybe not obviously to me, can quite quickly cause some issues. So I think to have AI creating your purchase orders and ordering your inventory without someone signing off those purchase orders, I think is a dangerous maneuver. But I think using it to fast track selection of inventory and what you're going to buy is a great move, and alerting you to, you've got an awful lot of this, it's going to take you 12 months to clear it. Do you really think you shouldn't be discounting it? I think that's good, but allowing it to just immediately make big decisions, because it might be, actually our number one influencer is going to be doing a series of YouTubes on that next week. So we're going to clear it all by the end of the week, but AI doesn't know that because we haven't told it. So I think automation can go across many things and should be going across many things. I think one of the best things about AI coming along is that retailers have woken up to the powers of automation, but you need the checks, balances, the oversight in the right places just to make sure that it's not going massively awry.
Yeah, and I guess by how you do that, it leads into my next question a little bit. Do you think retailers are measuring AI properly yet?
I doubt it, because I haven't come across many retailers who are yet using AI to a level it would make sense to measure it. If that makes sense, it's I going slightly curveball on your question here, but I think in a few years' time we won't really be talking about AI. We'll be talking about optimizing our inventory management or optimizing conversion rate on the website through personalization and proactive chatbots. We won't be talking about how we're using AI on the website. And I think where we're seeing the best opportunities is where our existing tool set are building AI into our tools. I don't think anyone's going to change inventory system because of AI, but they'll be really happy when their inventory system adds AI into the mix to make their jobs easier, make the reporting easier, and so on and so forth. Same with the personalization tools and the chatbots and so forth. So I think the reporting will be built into those tools, and we're actually going to be reporting on how's our open to buy doing, how is our margin looking for this season, how many weeks of stock have we got, are we hitting our targets on that, how is our conversion rate improving, how is our customer lifetime value improving. I think that's more, so I think we're kind of going to jump over AI reporting and go into the amount it's actually delivering.
Yeah. So yeah, I guess what you're saying is like we'll still be looking at kind of the similar stats and data, but we're just hoping that it will kind of make them a lot better or more efficient or basically.
Exactly. Although I do suspect we'll still get the CFO going, how much have we spent on
Yeah.
ChatGPT this month?
Yeah.
Who's been doing this? What have you got to show for it? And there will be some level of justification that has to be put through because of that. And maybe one intern would have been allowed to go rogue with an image creation or a video creation tool, and we'll catch a cold. But I think it's going to be more. We'll be looking at the same old stats, the right stats, and seeing how this is enabling us to optimize those better.
Yeah, 100%. And just finally then, Chloe, so on the 23rd of September, which is actually day one of Ecommerce Expo, but obviously this growth summit is taking place, you're going to be interviewing hopefully some really amazing retailers. What are the kind of questions, answers are you hoping to kind of pull out from those retailers and speakers?
I mean, I am fascinated to be moderating this panel because I want to know the answers as much as everyone else in the room wants to know the answers. So I will be aiming to get from our brave panel some things which make the audience go, oh, that's what I'm going for, that moment where you can see a light bulb going off above audience members' heads. So I'm hoping we'll have like the teeny tiny AI tips right the way through to the mega AI tips. And in this session, this chat with you, I've been mainly talking about the mega stuff, but like the teeny stuff, like was talking to a retailer recently on the podcast, Valente, the brand's called Valente, and they have a repository for all the stuff he, as the owner of the business, has learnt that the rest of the team can dive into and learn from, which there's an AI bot diving into it and going, we've got a problem with email subject lines, but ding ding, here's some stuff that we know is good quality because it's been curated by the founder. And I thought it's such a simple, clever way of using AI. So you're kind of like almost creating your own little wiki, I suppose, with a chatbot on the end of it who you can ask questions of. So I'd love some little kind of like genius little things like that, but also the big things and the big strategic things, and to see lots of virtual imaginary light bulbs going off around the audience is my goal.
Yeah, absolutely. Me too. That's my plan. Well, I'm hopefully going to bring the smart people on stage to do that for me. So that would be good. Amazing. Well, thank you so much, Chloe. It's been, as always, a pleasure talking to you. Just on that as well, if you're interested in the IMIG Growth Summit, it is invite only, or you have to apply for it. So just check that out on our website as to whether you kind of qualify for that. But if you're interested in that session, that is going to be at 3:35 to 3:55 on the 23rd of September in the Platinum Suite, so the XL. But for now, thank you so much for joining me, Chloe, and we look forward to seeing everyone at the event.
Very much so. See you all there.